What up, everybody, and welcome to Baz on Blades. My name is Baz, and I talk about blades. Today's feature blade is from Real Steel Knives. What we have here is the Ostap Hale designed Metamorph. This is a front flipper folder. It's sort of a gentleman's carry knife. This is a very interesting design for me to review because, frankly, I'm not a fan of front flippers. I just think that they are, for me, extremely awkward to use. And to begin this review, I want to say thank you to Brian. This is one of a number of knives that viewer and sub Brian sent to me to review. Again, thank you, buddy. This is another knife that I probably would have never had a chance to review if you hadn't sent it to me. I've enjoyed my time with it, and it gives us some more content for the viewers to take a look at. Much appreciated, Brian, and I hope you enjoy this. All right, so this is a very unique knife for me. Now, there are a lot of people out there that really love front flippers. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them, guys. But it is a very unique knife for me to be reviewing on my channel. Now, first of all, you're looking at price-wise, I believe these are going for $55 to $60 at Real Steel dealers. I did check at Blade HQ, and I apologize, I did not write down the price, but I believe that it was $59. So I'm going to say in the $55 to $60 price range. And that's a decent deal for materials you get and for build style features. Let's take a look at the packaging real quick. Real Steel does a nice job on their packaging. There's a lot of $200 knives out there that you will not get in a structured box like this. We'll take a look at the label right here, and you can see that this particular model is in the gold rose sort of finish, and that to me is like a cross between champagne and sort of salmon pink. It is not an ugly color. I'm not going to say it's the most manly color in the world, but it is not ugly at all. And if you only had one knife in your collection in this color, I don't see anything wrong with that. But what we've got here, we've got a nice structure box. We've got the Real Steel paperwork, some of which just jumped out on me. You've got a microfiber cloth, and then you've got a foam, cutout foam insert there that the knife will be down in. And you know what that is? It's much nicer than a lot of packaging, guys. I love this sort of pearloid silver finish that they've got on this box. It's actually fairly attractive as far as boxes go, but we're not here to talk about boxes. Let's talk about this knife. Now, this is a gentleman's folder. It's sort of a EDC-ish sized folder, and we'll take a look at the specs real quick. In the blade length, you're about 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. Blade stock thickness, 119 thousandths of an inch or 3 millimeters. The blade width at the widest, 677 thousandths of an inch or 17.2 millimeters. Your handle length, 4 5/8 of an inch or 11.5 centimeters. Your handle thickness is 447 thousandths of an inch or 11.36 millimeters. The handle width at the widest, 834 thousandths of an inch or 21.2 millimeters. And because this blade does fully nest within the handle, the closed width is going to be the same at 834 thousandths of an inch or 21.2 millimeters. Now, overall, 8.5 inches or 20.5 centimeters. Your stop pin diameter is 96 thousandths of an inch or 2.45 millimeters. behind the edge thickness on this blade. For such a narrow blade, it is very good, because the narrower your blade, the more thick that your primary grind has to be across the thickness of the blade stock. And behind the edge thickness on this is about 22 thousandths of an inch, or 0.57 millimeters. Your handle to blade ratio, very good at a 0.75, and your weight, a very lightweight 2.65 ounces or 75 grams. And a lot of that is in the materials, which we're going to go over right now. The handle on this is a full aluminum build with inset or nested stainless steel liners. The liners are weight relieved. Let's see if we can get enough light down in there for you guys to see that. I think you can see that there. The stainless liners are nested and they are weight relieved. And then you've got full aluminum scales. You've got a almost, that's a 3/4 or 4/5 length aluminum backspacer with a nice sort of semi-floating look here. You do have a stainless pin for your lanyard here at the back end, and you've got a stainless stamped and bent pocket clip, and then your small hardware is stainless. In the blade, what you've got is Sandvik's 14C28N, and Sandvik steel. This Sandvik steel in particular was developed as a knife steel. It is very, very popular across Europe. You'll see it in some kitchenware, actually, some kitchen knives. It is a medium high carbon, high chromium, nitrogen alloyed stainless steel. Your carbon content is 0.62, your chromium content is 14%, and then you have 0.11% nitrogen. What nitrogen does is it aids in hardness. Where you will typically see a blade steel's hardness depends on the amount of carbon, you can also add nitrogen to assist in making your steel harder. It is a very good alloying agent for steels that have a more moderate amount of carbon in them. Another thing that it does is it aids in corrosion resistance. It sort of it forms nitrides in the steel with carbon, and it prevents some of the chromium from being pulled in by the free roaming carbon. So these steels typically will have a little more free roaming chromium in them, and it'll aid in corrosion resistance. This steel, the factory Rockwell rating range for it is 58 to 62. I typically see it around 58, 59. What you get in this steel is good edge wear or wear resistance, good toughness, and good corrosion resistance. 14C28N is considered to be arguably the best of the commonly available budget stainless steels. Its competitors will be the 440 series, the 8CRs, the AUS 8s, and it is considered at the very top range of that. It's actually a pretty doggone decent stainless steel, guys. All right. So, material-wise, you're good to go on this. Now, let's talk about the action on it. As I said, going into this, I am not a fan of front flippers. To me, it is extremely awkward to use a front flipper, and on this particular knife, it's even worse. This is a very narrow, thin design, and while I do like those design aspects, they do affect how you use a front flipper. You have to hold this knife. You've got to be able to grip it, okay? So you're gripping it like this with no use of your thumb, and then coming up to the top, and see, It's just extremely awkward to me, guys, to, okay, there we go. It's just very, very awkward. I prefer a backside flipper tab any day of the week, guys. Any day of the week. You know, so there is my sort of personal bias on that. Beyond that, beyond my personal awkwardness and dislike of front flippers, the action is actually pretty good. It does run on a bearing pivot, so it is very smooth. The lockup is very solid, guys. There's no issues in that at all. There's no play in any direction. It is very smooth. The centering on this example is off to the back side a little bit, but this is a user from Brian, so I don't know if it originally the centering was better or not, but in budget knives in this price range, sometimes you are going to see that the centering is not perfect. That's one of the trade-offs in a budget knife, guys, unfortunately. So, as far as action goes, my personal opinion of front flippers aside, the action is pretty smooth on this, on a bearing pivot. No issues there. Absolutely no issues with the lockup. The centering is slightly off. All right, now, this is where I'm going to upset some people, and we're going to talk about ergos and utility use. Ergos and utility are where I part ways with this design in totality. I think that as far as utility use, this long, very thin, very pointy blade profile is one of the least utilitarian blade profiles there is. You've got plenty of cutting edge here. Very, very slight belly, guys, and it's basically it's continuous belly on what you might consider to be a drop point. Combined sort of bellied Warncliffe maybe, or very narrow sheep's foot with a drop point, very pointy tip. It does pierce very well, and the blade is pretty slicey with this profile. But to me, beyond cutting some string off of your clothing or opening an envelope, this is absolutely not the knife profile, blade profile, I'm sorry, that I want in a utilitarian knife. Again, this is more of a gentleman's carry knife. So, for you individually, that may or may not be a good blade profile. Just because my opinion is it is not utilitarian does not mean you could not use it for utilitarian purposes. That is just my opinion as a reviewer. And here is where I'm going to make people angry. I'm just going to flat piss off some people right here. I can't stand this handle. You will very, very seldom ever hear me say that about any knife design. I absolutely do not like this handle design. I do not like the choice of materials. I do not like the choice of finish on it, and I'm going to tell you why. This knife handle is absolutely the slickest handle I have ever felt in my life. I have handled tens of thousands of knives from different manufacturers in different handle materials and designs. I have never handled a knife that the handle offered me less purchase. It is extremely slick. This anodized surface is extremely slick. In fact, when I got this knife, even though it was not dirty, it felt oily to me. It was like grabbing a hold of a greased pig. So I took this knife and I cleaned it with soap and water. I cleaned it to make sure I cut any type of oil off of it. It is still absolutely the slickest Absolutely the slickest handle I've ever felt in my life. And then, as far as the handle design goes, while it is attractive, there's absolutely nothing on this handle to give you any purchase at all. Absolutely nothing. There's no finger choil. There's no jimping on the handle. There's no texturing. Nothing. Just an extremely slick hard coat anodized. And you can see this is not sort of a matte type of anodizing on there. It has a lot of sheen to it here, okay? It is absolutely slick. There is a very long section of decent jimping on the back of this blade, but it is decent. It is not super aggressive, and I got to tell you right now, I would not, absolutely would not use this knife in any stabbing or piercing movement or use into any tough material at all, because I know for a fact as soon as I do, my hand is going to slide forward right up on the blade, and I'm going to be cut very badly. All right, so we're going to go from that heartbreaking ergonomics into my overall on this knife. Let's bring back the packaging here. We're going to set this up nice and pretty so you can look at it, and I'm going to give you some closing thoughts on it. And I'm going to say up front, I am not going to recommend this knife. I am not going to recommend it at all. And I'm going to tell you the reasons that did not go into that. Okay? The first reason is it's a front flipper. Okay? That has nothing to do with me not recommending this. Just because I don't personally like front flippers has nothing to do with how good a knife it is or how good a design it is. All right, so that has nothing to do with it, because I know for a fact many people, many of my viewers like front flippers. It's just a personal thing, and that has no place in an honest review. The second thing, the centering on it not being good, that is also has nothing to do with me not recommending this knife. Because as I said, in the budget knife world, one of the things that you get in budget knives is issues sometimes with centering. For those of you that are Kershaw fans that buy a lot of lower end Kershaws, you know what I'm talking about. Most often I am not surprised with centering issues on less expensive knives. Do I want to see it perfectly centered? Well, yes. Don't we all? We want our knives to be absolutely perfect. But even though this knife is not perfectly centered, it is not bad. It's not rubbing on the scale. I mean, there's plenty of room in there. All right, it is just a little bit off from center. So that has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with me not recommending this knife. The color, this rose gold, which looks more like a metallic salmon to me. It may not be manly, but it has nothing to do with me not recommending this knife. I would have no issue having this color of knife in my pocket. And you know what? If I was going to a wedding in the springtime and I wanted a lightweight gentleman's carry, this knife aesthetically would very much fit in for that sort of occasion. So that has absolutely nothing to do with it. What is the reason that I cannot recommend this knife is it is so incredibly slick, the handle, in the hand. I do not feel like it is a safe knife to use. And for all of you guys that love this design, I have some brothers out there in the review world that do love this design. I'm sorry, but I have never held a knife in my hand that gave me less confidence in the grip. This is incredibly slick. There is no design aspect to the handle that gives you any added grip beyond the surface texture. You do have this length of jimping, but it is, while it is useful, it is not aggressive and will not make for a substitute for the lack of grip in the handle. I honestly, guys, I could not. I can't recommend it. It's so incredibly slick with absolutely no grip. And you can see I'm holding right here. That's to keep me from sliding up on the blade. Honestly, guys, I could not recommend this knife just because of that one reason. And, usually the pocket clip might give you a little extra purchase just from the tip, but look at the finish on the pocket clip. It's a mirror polish. It's slick too. Oh my God, guys. It is literally the slickest and least secure handle I've ever had in my hand. And for that one reason, I cannot recommend this knife. Other than that, it is attractive. It was well made. The blade steel is a decent blade steel. The action was good for a front flipper. I cannot recommend it based solely on the grip of the handle. All right, guys. I don't like doing negative reviews, and I don't feel like this review is a negative review because there's so many aspects of this knife that I did like. It's just that in a knife, regardless of the design, regardless of materials, regardless of how much it costs or how popular the brand is or what country it's made in or what the blade steel is, the knife has to be safe. I do not feel like this is a safe knife to use. Could a knowledgeable knife user and carrier use it without hurting themselves? Well, yes. That's somebody that would take that into account. And again, it's a gentleman's carry knife. It's not a heavy user. But I could just imagine somebody with less experience using a knife, getting this knife, and injuring themselves severely. And for that reason, I cannot recommend it. All right. Thank you again, Brian, for sending this knife to me. I did enjoy taking some time with it and reviewing it, even though I can't recommend it. As always, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to watch one of my videos. God bless all of you, and we will talk to you again.